Welcome to a session on COVID-19, a teachable moment. We're excited to be joined here today by biology teachers at two different schools across the nation. We'll first start our session with some myth busting and then ask our biology teachers how they're using this moment to create relevant and meaningful connections to understanding science.
Hi, I'm Nikki Wallace, and I'm from Crosstown High School, and I teach biology.
Hi, I'm David Moscarelli from Ponaganset High School, and I teach several different sciences, including microbiology and some medical-related sciences.
So science teachers push our students to critically think about the world around them. So when they hear myths shared by students in class, this can be particularly frustrating to encounter. So today we're going to have some of our XQ science teachers help us do a little bit of myth busting. Nikki and David, tell us the truth behind a few common myths that you've heard about COVID-19 in the past few weeks. COVID-19 is just like the flu.
That is false. It's definitely not just like the flu.
Myth. COVID-19 is man-made.
That is definitely not true.
Myth. You have to be with someone for 10 minutes to catch the virus.
This is false all the way around. If you breathe that particle in and it takes root, you got it.
Myth. Social distancing doesn't apply to me.
Social distancing is important to all of us. We've got to be careful. We've got to be very mindful of our space and how close we are to people, because there are asymptomatic carriers. People who tested positive are asymptomatic. So
even if someone has already had the disease once and thinks that they're immune, and maybe they are immune, they should still be social distancing just like the rest of us, because we just don't know for sure.
Myth. 5G spreads the virus even faster.
There are plenty of places in the world that don't have 5G that have the virus. So it seems to me that that's totally illogical.
Very illogical, because 5G is like signals being sent through the air. Wow.
Awesome. Now we have some questions for you on what it's like to be a science teacher right now. What is it like to teach right now?
Teaching right now is, to me, a challenge, because at Crosstown High, we put a lot of emphasis on getting to know our students. And my heart goes out to my students because they are struggling with anxiety. They're struggling to being away from each other socially. Some of them have family members who have become sick, and some have a student whose family member passed away. So it's very taxing on the heart right now. I just feel like the disparities are definitely more glaring right now between our students that have access to technology and decent internet versus those who don't. And a lot of that may even coincide with what I've experienced with them throughout the school year. But, you know, I've been able to be a lot more creative during this time frame. I've been able to to spend more time trying to engage our students, because I do teach ninth graders. So that's been something that I feel has been a bonus to have this type of downtime right now.
I would echo all of that. I think that those challenges are real. The inequities are now laid bare. Clearly, we need to start treating broadband internet like a utility, just like getting water for your house or like electricity. It needs the government needs to figure out a way to ensure it for all students. And because I've definitely had the same experience where our school the last 5 or 10 years has leaned more into the use of technology, online for homework and accessing content, et cetera. And I think we're realizing now how many kids just didn't have solid access to it. The second thing I guess I would say in terms of right now is I think the challenge of meeting all of the different types of learning styles is greater than ever. Again, because of these kinds of disparities, because some of the supports that were there in school, I think all schools have great staff members who do nothing but support students and learners as learners all day long, support them, emotionally, et cetera, et cetera. And while those people are still working, it's much harder when it's remote. And so, I just think it's a real challenge to get out and reach the students who need to be really supported and helped out along the way, but also to, reach the student who just wants to learn more, who's getting ready. I have a lot of juniors and seniors there, and they're getting ready for college, maybe next year, and they want to learn more. And how do I support those students at the same time as the others? So that to me has been a real challenge.
What opportunities do you see in this moment?
I keep hearing this cliche about the digital divide. Like, you hear it, people talk about it, but I really feel like they actually see what it is now. So maybe like how David said earlier, as far as like making internet a utility, I think it is imperative if we're trying to, equalize opportunity for all students, we have got to give them the same basic foundations.
Yeah, I would say on the student end of things, I think there's a real opportunity for students to be self-directed learners and learn how to organize themselves, to motivate themselves. I wonder, especially as we think about graduating seniors, they go from this world where they're relatively controlled to a world of, real freedoms in college or the workplace or wherever they're going next. And so to me, this graduating class this year will be more practiced and prepared than others to adapt to manage their own time, manage their own stuff. I think this particular time period has kind of exposed the need for those 21st century or soft skills that we talk about. We're getting way beyond the academics now. The students who are succeeding aren't just the ones who are good at multiple choice tests. They're the kids who are good at all of those other skills as well that we've been giving lip service to.
Having students who are already studying viruses, how are you thinking of ways that they can take this knowledge and apply it to the community?
Biology is a natural fit to this scenario. I think the COVID-19 crisis has highlighted the need to know science and the need to know biology and how living systems work so that we can protect ourselves and our family. Biology should be informing policy. It should be informing what we do day to day. And I think that this COVID-19 crisis definitely has amplified that to the max. It's showing how important it is to our society.
In two of my classes, epidemiology and virology are things that we would be studying anyway. They're going to just run through a bunch of different scenarios and try to think of creative solutions using design thinking process to come up with creative solutions to make their own school year next year better. I would like to think that this is kind of knowledge is power here, and they feel like they can at least do something potentially positive with it, and again share it out with the larger community and really impact all of their peers next year as a result.
How are you making connections with other disciplines and content that intersect with the sciences?
All of the core content teachers meet and we kind of discuss what we're going to do for that week. And we try to make connections between our materials by having those conversations. Some things just organically happen. Other things are like, maybe I'll touch on this while you do that. Definitely is kind of a challenge sometimes, but being in this online world, but it's a lot easier, I feel like, with my situation because we do kind of like co-plan together, so that the content flows into one general idea and so like it just really fit well together right now to show the importance of having all of that content to be able to have this dimensional, I guess you could say, this multi-dimensional aspect of dealing with COVID-19 right now.
I would say within our department, the science department, I think we all actually really like meetings. Sometimes meetings have been, you kind of drag yourself to a meeting, I'll be honest. But I think that once a week getting to just see each other's faces has been great. And we've definitely been sharing a lot of ideas there. I think the teaching that we're doing, you kind of can't avoid, when you're talking about the virus, you can't avoid talking about economics, politics, law.
How are you keeping students engaged? How are you measuring student engagement?
The way that I keep my students engaged, I really do feel, is through, creating content that is meaningful to them. I make my science class relevant to things that are of interest to them and of things that are of concern to them in the community. And then also, how do I measure engagement is if they're still working. Definitely having more of a student voice and choice into what they're doing gives them that, I believe, breeds the engagement piece that most teachers want.
What have you learned about yourself as a teacher in the past few weeks?
Oh boy. I guess I've learned from myself is that I do tend to take on a lot. I needed to probably spend a lot more time, I guess, on a personal level with my own kids and their academic situations. And then I've learned that even though this is my 10th year teaching, that there's still so much more to learn in education. There's still so much more to learn about how to support kids' emotional states, how important your words are with the students, how important it is that to build or to be able to build relationships with your students. I had no idea I had an effect on the students as I did. I guess we're always in the heat of the moment and you just never know, you know, if the kids are hearing you or they just despising you or whatever, but like, it's been really eye-opening that I really feel like my students really and truly appreciate me.
For me, I think I've learned about my teacher. I actually have pretty strong beliefs about what good teaching looks like and sounds like and feels like and what learning is. And this has been challenging to not be able to do a lot of those kind of collaborative, student generative activities that I would normally do in the classroom. And while I'm trying my best, I think I've learned ultimately that, you know, I'm a pretty good classroom teacher, and I need to get better at being an online teacher.
What advice do you have for other educators, science teachers in particular?
My advice to science teachers right now is to take advantage of the free training that's out there. I mean, I think that's invaluable. I've learned so much about different platforms. I've learned so much about emotional support of my students. I'm taking a course on EDX through MIT to kind of like learn more about my practice. So like this has been an opportunity for me to really strengthen, I feel like, my skill set so that when I do go back, I'm definitely greater than I was during this downtime.
Try your best to keep the culture of your classrooms alive. Think back to all those wonderful moments you had while you were in the classroom and what created those moments, and try your best, even artificially, to recreate some of those. Remind students of some of the great things that happened, the funny things that happened, the silly things that happened in your class, to remind them of the culture that was built and still exists, even if we're not in the same space together. And recognize that culture and the process of learning probably is more important right now than the content that we teach. And so what are the practices of science in particular, but just the practices of learning in general that we can still encourage our kids to be doing and thinking about, and, you know, try to build lessons and activities that support that. Give yourself a break. You know, this is really challenging stuff. I think very few of us were ever trained in this. I think teachers frequently enter the profession because we're kind of control freaks and we're kind of conservative in that way, that like we like to kind of command our own, you know, space and classroom and know what we're doing and plan ahead. And this is not the time to do that. And so if you feel uncomfortable, that's okay. Cut yourself some slack. If you see someone doing some amazing thing on Twitter, if you want to steal it, great. But if that's not you, then don't sweat it. Let that person do what they do, and, you know, do the best that you can for your students.
Where are you finding your resources? What tools are you using?
I am not limiting myself. I am, you know, searching high and low. I would say that some of the most valuable things I've found have been through Facebook groups that are specific to some of the content that I teach, or seeing something on Twitter, et cetera. But definitely going to those organizations. I mean, everybody is responding to this crisis by posting things that are shareable right now and can be, and they're modifying things for remote learning, et cetera. So whatever that go-to resources that you've done in the past, or maybe you haven't looked at in 5 years, they've probably updated something and are sharing it. And almost every tech platform is sharing something for free right now through the end of the school year, or you get more, trial access to things. So all of those wonderful interactive tools that are out there, I would certainly suggest using those. And, you know, the list is extremely long, but I'd say all of those interactive tools are that can be used either to deliver content, to assess students on their content, or especially in the science context, to give students a chance to manipulate things, use interactives. I would definitely suggest using the ones that seem to work well for your teaching.
So I'll add to that, David. One of the places, there's several places I go. My first go-to is MIT. They are great as far as like giving resources that are relevant and how to use it. XQ Schools and the Emerson Collective has like this huge list of stuff. I've been looking through it. Actually some of it I knew and some of it I'm like, I didn't know about that. So I've been using a lot of the tools that they have out on the internet for learning about new resources. In addition to, like you said, the Facebook pages and the Twitter. Twitter's been my best friend. I've learned so much on Twitter. It's like too much social media, but I love Twitter as far as learning about my craft. I also, since I use design thinking a lot, I use the D-School as a backdrop to a lot of how I develop my coursework. And so I have been using it all year anyway. So I use the D-School, the Stanford D-School, to actually help think about like potential projects and products that I could make with my students. There's just so many tools out there. I guess the best thing to do is to find the one that fits your personality and style, because we all have our unique way of doing and seeing things. So if it works, great. If not, move on. So I think this is definitely our time to do trial and error as far as like what you feel most comfortable with working with.